This is Reina, the boss who's feared by many and obeyed by all. She'll often get drunk at night to take the edge off, and turns into a completely different person when she does. Will Ishizumi be able to get her through this mess, or will her drunken state fall for him instead? Late one night at the park, Ishizumi reached out his hand and calls out to her, wanting to know what she was doing there. And wait, is she drunk? He's never seen her like this, in such a vulnerable state, and to think she had been holding in all this stress. But what she really wanted to know is what the hell he wanted. And taking a real long and good look at him, she finally noticed who he was. Her childhood friend Tamatsu! What the hell is that? Bro couldn't help but turn away in shame. He couldn't bear to look at his president like this, and figured he'd just pretend he saw nothing. But speaking of holding in all that stress, she needed to unbutton for a bit, popping out all of them biddies. God damn, bro couldn't believe his eyes. He had to use his suitcase just to protect y'all's purity. And not before long, she could feel herself getting sleepy. But Ishizumi couldn't possibly leave the president in her current state, offering to bring her home once she cools down. But still, she wanted to know if she was that annoying, plunging herself into a deep depression. Sure, she might be the president, but all she does is act all high and mighty, when really, she has no idea what she's even doing. She's also heard her subordinates gossiping about her, and Ishizumi never would have expected her to have such a delicate side to her. But as punishment, she's gonna find him and twist them into a pretzel tomorrow. But I mean, to be honest, that might be taking it a little bit too far. She continues that she always had a bad temper and that she tends to lash out when she snaps. But she's just trying her best to protect her dad's company. She fears being underestimated because she's so young and thought being strict would solve all her problems. But in the end, she wonders if maybe she's just not cut out to run a company. But Ishizumi doesn't think that's true. Sure, she might still be young, but she takes her role seriously more than anyone. Not to mention being as dedicated to it at her age. It's beyond admirable. And he's noticed that even while bearing the burden of being president, she continues to lead the company forward. And that's why he's sure there's someone out there who sees all her efforts. He desperately wants her to keep moving forward because he'll always be the one to support her. And while sitting there, she took a moment to take it all in, wondering if maybe he had actually been flirting with her this whole time. How was it that after just meeting her, he was able to understand her so well when they haven't even exchanged names yet? But to his surprise, she actually wouldn't mind starting off as friends first. Perfect. And at this point, he's just cooked. But pleading with her one last time, he begs her to get a grip, but she might already like him. And while leaning in closer, she presses her body against his and passes out cold. He's relieved she had finally fallen asleep, and with a hopeful smile, he complimented her once more on how hard she had been working. And with her arms wrapped around his, he slowly walked her home. But all hell breaks loose the next day when she calls out for him. But in reality, she had completely forgotten everything and was back to her usual violent self, thinking how all her employees are just a bunch of bums and how badly she wants to drink and unwind right now. But on to more pressing matters, she wonders how exactly was she able to get home last night, as she still doesn't remember. The only thing she has to cling on to was someone's voice promising to support her, and she wondered if she went back to the park today, if she'd see him again. Gathering all her employees together, Reina wanted to let them know they're all slackers, and if they're not motivated to work, then they should go and play on a swing in a park somewhere like some little kids. She continues to rule with an iron fist, having her subordinates shaking their boots. Some of them can't believe they're the same age as her, while some just think she should ease up a little. Before them stood their president, who struggles to close the gap between her and her employees. If only they had an opportunity to see her like he did. Maybe they'd draw a little closer to her. I mean, it's not like anyone would believe him, as what stood before them was a tiny monster, ready to throw hands at any given moment, pleading with everyone to stay focused and tighten up. But as soon as she saw bro slacking off, you already know it was up for him, cause she had this man in a headlock. Look at Ishizumi rushing over just to save this man's life. And while she stormed off, she demands Fujioka to get a grip. But bro was damn near on the brink of death. He had to be gasping for air like, Chief. He had never been choked out by a woman his age before, and he can feel it. Something's awakening inside of him, but Ishizumi had to let him know that's not the type of kink he should invest in. He needs to close that door immediately. But Ishizumi had bigger problems, because he's unsure about what he's supposed to do. And while turning up to the park, he thought to stop by, fearing she might be passed out drunk, especially after everything that had happened at the company that morning. But then was stopped in his tracks when he noticed something hurling towards him, and her shoe clapped him up right in the middle of his forehead. It hurt so bad, it brought this man to his knees. Bro literally thought he got shot. And then her complaining began, because both the new hire and older staff are testing this woman's patience. And while swinging in a park somewhere like some little kid, she exclaims that being president is too hard. Right away he figured she must be talking about the meeting they had earlier that morning, and how it's his first time ever seeing a grown-ass woman pumping her legs on a swing, to the point it feels as if he's witnessing something he shouldn't. But calling out to her, he tries to get her attention, and she beams with excitement, immediately recognizing him as the guy from yesterday, and rushes in to give him a hug, as she really missed him, and urges him to listen as something awful had happened at work today. Everyone seems to be talking about her behind her back, even though she's working as hard as possible. But she switches her focus to the huge lump on his forehead, panicking since maybe her shoe had hit him earlier. But putting her mind at ease, he mentions that it was just some metaphorical bullet that had shot him. And so, she gets to talking about her situation at work, all while Ishizumi patiently listens, with a beer in his hand. And she continues to swing back and forth, expressing how she really wants to drink more booze, but she isn't able to because her hands are full, all while Ishizumi takes a sip of his, thinking from the employee's point of view. Surely, they must think it's strange suddenly seeing the founder's daughter taking over, starting from zero, with no trust or allies by her side. And he can't really blame them. But Reina, without a care in the world, just wants to sip her beer and open her mouth wide to receive some, before stopping entirely on the swing, leaving Ishizumi to wonder if maybe she was feeling better now. But in reality, everything she drank was about to come right back up. Rushing to her side, he asked if she was okay, figuring she must have felt ill because she decided to drink and swing shortly after. But she simply wanted to know how it all turned out like this. Why did her dad have to die? And taking a moment to register what she had said, he turned away without saying much. And yet again, she thinks she's not cut out to be a leader, failing terribly at everything. Well, except putting people in a sleeper hole. She's actually pretty good at that. But it's then that Ishizumi noticed that she's always so composed, that he sometimes forget that she's 24, lost her dad, and then was thrown into business. How the pressures must be crushing her. And yet, she never shows even a hint of pain. He wants to do more, but's unsure of how he'd even go about it. In calling out to her once more, he confesses that he'll always be by her side, no matter what, causing her to go into a nervous frenzy. but he assures her that no one's able to do it alone right from the start. So it's okay for her to take it one step at a time. He might be unsure of how he could help, but he's dedicated towards coming there each and every night. And no matter what it is, he's willing to lend a listening ear for as long as she'd want. But well, if it's okay with her. And with a hopeful smile, she agrees that it's a promise, deciding to wait on him there every single day, and immediately went ahead and asked him to push her on the swing. After all, he did mention she could ask him for anything. And not before long, she was hitting bro with the pretty please, as being pushed is way more fun than doing it alone. And truly, she needs someone there who's willing to push her forward. And he'll be the one to do it, not just for the company, but for her sake as well. But right in the middle of his monologue, she got straight to vomiting, sprinkling it everywhere as she's propelled forward, almost getting some on his suit. And the very next day, she asked what had happened to his forehead, leaving him to conjure up some excuse that he just carelessly hit his head. It's then that he also noticed something different about her as well, since today she's wearing an all-white suit. But it turns out her usual is in the cleaners. She demands that they quit chatting and prepare for the meeting they have ahead of them, with Fujioka noticing that she seemed to have been in a really good mood today, as she hasn't yelled once so far. And it's looking like bro's really missing being mistreated. Like, damn it, we lost him to the dark side. It's while she was walking away that she turns and noticed the bump on Ishizumi's forehead, and something about it bothers her, but thinks that it's probably just her imagination. While storming through the office, Reina realized it's been about 6 months since she took over her dad's business, and she's sure she's gotten used to the work by now, but what she mostly sucks at is building a strong connection with her subordinates. There's still a large distance between them, and she couldn't possibly hope to run a business if everyone around her is walking on eggshells. Plus, the mysterious man did tell her to take it one step at a time, so she'll aim to exchange a basic greeting with everyone. And with a stern and ominous aura, she greets them good morning. But she obviously couldn't stop there. She had to torture everyone else in the office. And our brother Fujioka's out here starving. He wants to feel all that pressure she's putting on everyone else today. But Ishizumi doesn't think that's exactly what she's going for. After all, she did mention it the other day, since she's concerned her employees are avoiding her. But yet it seems to be backfiring horribly, as her subordinates now wonder if they did something wrong. But while still deep in thought, Reina calls out to him, wishing him a good morning. And right as he was about to respond, she looked up at him, and all he saw was her cutesy side, and immediately choked, stuttering a good morning back. But he's nervous for an entirely different reason, as no one could possibly imagine the boss wanting to be pampered. Meanwhile, as Reina sits by her desk, she wonders why, despite her efforts this morning to lighten the mood, it seems the atmosphere has gotten worse somehow, thinking that she might have been a bit too direct, and figured that maybe everyone's just tired, when suddenly a social butterfly enters the office, cheerfully wishing everyone a good morning. And it didn't take long for all the men to flock towards her, returning her warm greeting. And Reina couldn't believe her eyes. Our little social butterfly even went ahead and greeted Ishizumi. But Fujioka wasn't feeling her vibe at all. He likes his women a little bit more rough around the edges. But right as Ishizumi decided to look up, Reina's eyes were filled with malice, darted over towards him, sending chills down his spine. And sure enough, when night fell, there he was looking for her, wondering what could have caused such a crazy expression earlier. Both her and our social butterfly are 24, but even with the same greeting, everyone reacted differently. And while Ishizumi arrived at the park, he hoped that just for today, she wouldn't be completely dead drunk again. But there she was, far gone beyond this world, petting a panda she now calls Mr. German. Ishizumi couldn't believe she was far more depressed than he thought. And ain't no way we're gonna be making it back after this one. Even the amount of alcohol today was doubled. And as he calls out to her, she noticed that he decided to stop by today as well. And as Ishizumi gently asked if she was okay, she decided to open up. As today, everyone called her ugly, but not a single soul said that. And Ishizumi decided to commit himself to the role, asking if she was serious. To think they'd all insult their own boss like that. Like bro's a W actor. But they did. Everyone had said it actually. And because of that, she's completely refusing to go back to the office. But believe it or not, all her employees couldn't compare to this one guy called Ishizumi. He decided to avert his eyes when she greeted him, but then decided to act all lovey-dovey when another cute employee greeted him, and thought that maybe he should just fire that guy. And bro said, oh nah, not my job. Forget me saying bro was a W actor. He turned into a lawyer instead, defending himself. As that Ishizumi guy she's talking about probably didn't avert her gaze because he disliked her or anything. And as soon as she heard that, she asked if he was backing him up, if they were somehow allies. But to Ishizumi, she's the company's president, so it could just be that everyone gets a bit nervous around her. But it's totally natural for greeting to be more lighthearted around fellow employees. But in his opinion, her ability to hold a sense of honor and respect is one of her greatest abilities as a leader. And finally turning around, she asked if he really thought so. It's not like she wants to be fawned over or anything, but the way her employees react to her makes her a bit sad. Or rather, she feels a bit jealous. And finally understanding how she might feel, Ishizumi realized that if she were only a regular employee, she wouldn't have had to put up a tough act, and would more than likely easily win everyone over. But without experiencing that, she now stands above as the president, making everyone else nervous to approach her. But calling out to her, he wanted to advise her to have a bit more confidence, as her face, it's actually really pretty. Even her eyes and nose are, well, you know, nice, is what I'm guessing he's trying to say. But also, he knows it's only been a few days since he met her, but despite being so young, her perseverance is something to be admired. But what he's really trying to say is that no matter what happens in the office, he'll be the one to praise her lots at this park, as he's sure that would help her one way or another. And as he stood there wondering what he was even saying, she asked if maybe his help was only applied to the park. And as he stood there stuttering, he asked what else she had in mind. But she wanted him to praise her on Lime, the messaging app, as well. And even though Ishizumi doesn't use the app that often, he still decided to go through with it, with Reina thanking him, since she'll make sure to text him a lot. But she also had to let him know that she'll get pretty upset if he doesn't respond quickly. But Ishizumi doesn't mind too much, since if he can lower her stress even by a little, he would. But interrupting his thought, she realized his account name was Zumi, and thought it was a pretty cute nickname. And if that was the case, she wanted to know what his real name was. Ishizumi knows it's only because Reina's drunk that she thinks he's someone else. But if she were to find out that he was actually one of her employees, then she wouldn't be willing to reveal her weaknesses, and might start stockpiling them all alone. So he had to think on his feet. And while he stuttered his name, he mentions that it's Izumi, as he just couldn't say it. But she leaps forward, hugging him, as from now on, she'll be in his care. And that's when it hit him. He had made it to the point of no return. The next day while at work, Ishizumi stares at a message from Reina, letting him know she's at work. He knows she'll only get upset if he takes long to respond, so he tries his best to do just that, but wonders what he'd even say, as it all feels like he's doing something he shouldn't. And as he thought about sending a fight on sticker, Fujioka pops in from behind, asking if he was texting his girlfriend. And in the process, his hand had slipped, sending a completely different message. And as Reina looked down towards her phone, she saw a hugging sticker with the caption, "They're there." And she immediately turns into a shy mess, as she had no idea Izumi was so passionate. When suddenly, our social little butterfly startles Reina while handing her some documents. And as she thanks her, little social butterfly couldn't help but admire how composed Reina was, and skipped away, all while Reina looked back at her, thinking that she can't just be grinning at the office like this, and decided to look at all the messages later. While at home, Reina types away on her phone, happy since Izumi seems to be replying right away. And that's when she thought about how she hugged him the other day, and she couldn't help but smile. It gets her all embarrassed just thinking about it, wondering why she even gets so bold when she drinks in the first place. She's always completely drunk when she's at the park. Plus, it's always dark that she can't even remember his face. But it doesn't really matter, as just being able to talk to Izumi about work makes her stress as president feels manageable. She mentions how all her employees talk behind her back, and all it does is just make her feel like punching them in their faces. While Izumi thinks violence is no good, but rather she should create allies instead. Curious, she asks how she'd even go about it, as she doesn't have a lot of opportunity to talk with them freely, with Izumi recommending that she has a meal with everyone. After all, they do say it's easier to open up that way. And with that thought in mind, Reina thought she'd try eating with everyone. And so while at work the next day, a few employees noticed it was already lunchtime. And as they got up to go eat, Reina watches them from a distance and grabs her homemade bento, making her way to the break room. And as she peeks out from the corner, Fujioka asks Ishizumi why their president had been glaring into the break room. And bro spun his head around quick, wondering if she's trying to follow the advice he sent that morning, but wondered why she stood there staring, that she should just come over already, since she clearly has everyone eating like they're in prison being supervised. Well, except for Fujioka, he's digging this new form of torture. But then he realized she must have been nervous and decided to send an invite, asking if she'd like to join them. She claims she's a bit busy, but she guessed it's okay. And we all know she's lying, but as she sat down, Ishizumi couldn't help but notice she bought her own bento and asked if maybe she had made it herself, with her claiming that it was mainly for health reasons. And bro thought right back to their text message. To her, it's not good to only eat convenience store bentos. And as the president, she wanted to be a role model to everyone. And though he thinks it's quite commendable, she mentions that she isn't that good at it as she unfolds her bento. And just look at it. Bro, what the hell is that? Bro couldn't believe the cooking disaster before him. Like, this is the type of things you only really see in mangas. She claims that she only messed up here and there and figured that she should just go and dispose of it. But noticing how hard she had worked on it, Ishizumi calls out to her. Sure, her food looks sickening, I mean unique, but that's just how bentos look sometimes. Lies! And he'd like to try some. And as she reluctantly passes it over to him, he thought about how hard she had worked on it, so she'd be able to connect with everyone. And so, if he thought about it like that, then the food truly would be terribly wonderful. But bro's being poisoned as we speak, slowly losing HP with each bite. And as Reina continues to watch on, Fujioka thinks Ishizumi is making the food look good and couldn't help but grab a piece from his plate. And bro couldn't find the words to describe what he was tasting, but eventually thought how insanely painful this feeling he had was. It's kind of exactly like experiencing suffering actually. But he loves it and immediately asked for leftovers. But she had grabbed this man so quick, squeezing his cranium. Ishizumi had to grab onto her, begging her to lower her weapon. And screaming with excitement behind her, Little Miss Social Butterfly noticed the boss was having lunch in the break room and wanted to know if she could join in, rushing over to show the boss that she had brought her own bento from home. And when she opened it, she mentioned how she had gotten really into making hers and asked if it didn't look tasty. And being a good boss, Reina praised her, mentioning that Little Miss Social Butterfly, who we'll call Shinozaki, was actually pretty good at cooking and began to give her head pats, which shocked Ishizumi, who for sure thought she'd be bothered by it. It wasn't until later that night, when he finally made it to the park, that he saw her drinking yet again and realized that she was actually really bothered by it, since she went on a drunk shopping spree, buying a whole bunch of kitchenware for no reason. And she started laying down some musical bars. Because with all these machines, she's practically the cook. It took Ishizumi calling out to her and asking what was going on for her to notice that she was singing out loud this whole time, thinking how embarrassing that must have been. But what he really wanted to know about was everything she had bought. And almost as if she was caught red-handed, she stutters in mentioning that she tried what he recommended and went out to eat lunch with her employees. But when she had gone to show off her bento, it didn't turn out well. Plus there happened to be someone there who was really great at cooking, and it had really made her embarrassed. You see, when she was younger, her dad never allowed her to hold a knife, as he'd always say it was dangerous. But there was this one guy who ate her bad food as if it were delicious, thinking that he probably did it because he pitied her. And so she knew it would annoy her if Ishizumi thought she was a terrible cook forever. So she wanted to practice and then serve him something tasty. It's then that Ishizumi finally realized what had happened, thinking that perhaps he paid too much attention to her and made her feel bad. But still, it's not like she likes him or anything. After all, that guy's plain, and he's way too soft on his coworkers. Plus he's stubborn too, that's for sure. And not to mention hard to get along with. Definitely the opposite of the man standing right in front of her. And with a hopeful smile, Ishizumi commends her, because even with that many employees, she still watches the lower level staff such as himself, and that part of her reminds him of her father. But still, Ishizumi thinks it's admirable that she desires to learn more about cooking, and he's sure because of her efforts, she grew a bit closer with her employees today, and how much she'd done a great job. And that's all she needed to hear, as being praised by Izumi makes her really happy. And well, if that's the case, then he should definitely help her carry all her stuff home. And without resisting, he follows his boss's orders, while Ishizumi mentions he'll call a taxi immediately. It's when he arrived at her home, Ishizumi thought about how guilty he felt for lying to her. He doesn't know what would happen if his secret got out there. But while placing the last box down, he reminds himself that it's all for the sake of helping her with her stress. And unfortunately, that's not something he's able to do as Ishizumi just yet. And it seems today's socializing for her was a success. So he's sure he's doing a good deed as Izumi, just as long as he doesn't make any mistakes. When he turned around, there she stood in front of the door, locking it, as she's finally caught him. He's helped her with so many problems, and she just wants to return the favor. All while Ishizumi freaks out. He had let his guard down, and now he's in her house. All while she mentions that he shouldn't get the wrong idea, as she doesn't just do these kind of things for anyone. But Ishizumi's trying to escape, mentioning that he hasn't done anything impressive actually, so she really shouldn't mind it. so he'll be on his way. But latching onto him with that gorilla grip and with tears forming in her eyes, she asked why he wanted to go home so soon. If maybe it's because he hates her, or maybe it's because he wanted her to turn into a baby again, and hugs him so tight by his waist and begs him not to go home. But she isn't the only one begging, because bro needs her to calm down. But by grabbing his arms and jumping to wrap her legs around his neck, she brought his ass to the floor, damn near crippling our boy, demanding that she won't let go until he says he's staying. And it didn't take long for him to give in, with her apologizing for the fuss. And since it can't be helped, Ishizumi plans on having a single drink and then dash, but wonders how he'd even explain this situation if it ever got leaked. But Reina's mind is someplace else, because even though the lights were off, their bodies were so close together just now that it kind of felt lewd. But then decided that since the place was so dark, that she'd go turn on the lights. And right as she was about to flick them on, Ishizumi grabs onto her, begging her to wait just a second, as turning on the lights would be bad news, as the only reason why she's unable to even recognize him is because the park was so dark, and she'd absolutely recognize him if the house lights were on. And so, well, you know, since it's always dark when they meet, he'd be too shy to see her face so clearly. And sure, it might be a dumb reason, but she's eating it up. After all, since she's so cute, Izumi would definitely be shy, and proceeds to invite him in. She turns on the dimmest light she had, and as they sat together enjoying a beer, Reina noticed that all of a sudden, she was getting really nervous. I mean, it is a dimly lit room, just the two of them and a view of the city. Yeah, even Ishizumi knows that this is how people get down and jiggy with it. And because he knows this, he senses this strange feeling welling up inside him. And as he peeks and takes a look at her, Reina's staring into this man's soul. He immediately decided to change the mood, asking how her duties as president had been going. But Reina ain't trying to talk about that. She wanna know what kind of girls he's into. And her question really had bro pondering, like, damn, I never thought about that question before. So his response was having nothing in mind. And you could just tell from the disappointment on her face, that's not the response she wanted to hear. So Ishizumi had to give her something to work with, as he mentioned someone who's strong-willed. And she immediately thought about herself. But that wasn't all she wanted to know, because up next, she wanted to know what physical features of a girl's body does he like the most, all while she grabs her waist and push her chest out. But not wanting to play along anymore, Ishizumi mentions that there's nothing in particular, and right to baby mode she goes. But taking a peek, Ishizumi noticed her kitchen, how the rest of the house seemed so clean, yet the kitchen's a total mess. But remembered how hard she had worked to make the bento that morning. He's sure she hadn't planned for it, so she must not have had time to clean up. And the more he thought about how hard she had worked, it made him want to try his best to respond too. As rather than someone who's slim, he kinda prefers someone a bit more voluptuous. My dog! And that's all she needed to hear, as she grabs onto him, pressing her chest against his arm and squeezes, asking if what she was doing also made him happy. And right as he was about to ask her to wait, she answered his question from earlier, mentioning that she actually was a bit worried about work. But right now, she seems to be having a blast, as whether it's together or talking on rhyme, she feels like she could become a regular girl, and not just some company's president. And as a result of that, even her job has slowly been getting better because of him. It's because of Izumi why she feels as though she can do her best. Or rather, when he's gone, she can't. Ishizumi once again thinks that he hasn't done anything special, but she doesn't want him to say that and requested that just for today if he'd like to spend the night. But Ishizumi can't shake this throbbing pain he feels and wonders if it must be the guilt from lying to her this whole time. The throbbing pain had gotten so bad he couldn't hold it any longer. But wait, it wasn't his chest but his stomach instead. Like, what the hell did he even eat? Oh. And bro went straight to the toilet to take the worst dookie of his life, and shortly after went home. It's during the morning that Reina panics as she totally overdid it last night, wondering if maybe he hates her now. Sure, he said his stomach started hurting suddenly, but what if he was put off and ran home? Plus, he's not responding on Rhyme either. When looking up from her phone, she noticed another cell phone on her couch, and upon looking closer, noticed it belonged to Izumi. Yo, it's your boy Noodles, and if you enjoyed this video, man, then definitely check out some more peak fiction, man, right here on the screen. And if you'd like a part 2, then definitely let me know in the comments below. But with that, I'll see you guys on the other side.